Hey guys, this is John Davis. I just want to do a quick video comment thing here. On the somewhat older topic about a couple months ago, Ben Carson was saying that he would not support a candidate who was a Muslim, or he would not vote for a Muslim, and he said he had a hard time with that. There's a lot of controversy with that because the Constitution does say that religious qualifications shouldn't exist for someone trying to take on any office in federal government, specifically, especially for the role of the president. So, and people are saying that the opposite extremity of a religious qualification should not have any effect on somebody's votes. And I want to comment on that first of all. People are also saying, specifically regarding Ben Carson, that his tax plan is ridiculous because he's suggesting basically, first of all, his tax plan is basically 15 or so percent or whatever percent imposed on everyone, poor, middle class, rich. Everybody pays 15% or something like that, and people are complaining that that essentially means that the richer people will be paying less and poorer people will be paying more in taxes, and they're complaining how Christian is that. I mean, that's just, they're complaining that that's not Christian-like. So on these two different issues, I wanted to address them. First of all, regarding a person's religious beliefs, a person's religious beliefs are going to drive the person's political beliefs, depending on the religion, because some religions are very personal, they're very private, they're very have nothing to do with politics. Sometimes, though, they really do affect their political stances. And if someone is touting a religion that espouses the baggage of political philosophies that enslave non-believers, that treat non-believers with complete disrespect, that even has verbiage of saying fight and slay non-believers until everyone declares that there's only one God, there's no God but Allah. If their religion is one that says to throw gays off top of tall buildings, or if their religion is such that women should be stoned if they dress inappropriately, or they have been sexually involved outside of their marriage, or whatever. Those are political stances that are driven off of their religion, and so my response is absolutely, the religion should have an effect on whether or not they're going to be voted. And only because that religion, it can affect their political stance. And so if their religion affects their political stance, then their vote is going to be driven off of that particular political stance. It doesn't matter what they say their policies will be, as long as they believe that, as long as they declare that the religion that they adhere to, that they're adhering to it, because that's part of the baggage of what they're going to believe as a president. Keep in mind that the history of that verbiage in the Constitution saying there should be no religious qualification for the office, that verbiage came from a history, the American history of that preceded the forefathers when they created these founding documents. That history was that of separatists who wanted to be free to read the Bible on their own, willingly, not being allowed to. Basically, they were killed. They were at least tortured. They were often imprisoned, often then tortured, sometimes even killed, just because they were reading the Bible freely, and they wanted the freedom to do that. So when the Pilgrims came on the Mayflower, they were not escaping religion. What they were escaping from was theocracy. They loved the Bible. They wanted nothing more. I'm not talking about all of them, but I'm talking about the majority of them. They wanted nothing more. They literally wanted nothing more. Their sole objective was to get away from tyranny of theocracy and be free to read the Bible as much as they could, as much as was humanly possible, memorize as much as they could. Not only that, but to bring it back. They actually wrote down their plans that they were going to learn the Bible, read it, study it, and bring it back to them as missionaries back to their old original homeland. They were not secularists. Separatists were not secularists. And I'm telling you this because that is the background of that clause in the Constitution, which is basically saying that we are not going to be an imposing theocracy that says that you can't be free to read the Bible on your own. That was the purpose. It's basically saying we're not going to say what you can and cannot believe or do in terms of what your doctrines are. We're not going to deny you the role of getting involved in government if you just because you believe in XYZ. Now, as far as Islam is concerned, if the whole country wants that, if the whole country wants Sharia law, great, bring them in. But as a Christian, I don't want Sharia law, so that is going to affect my vote. Does that make sense? Because what the law is saying is basically saying that just if we're all in consensus that this religious doctrine is acceptable to be imposed upon everyone, then that we shouldn't stop that. But we're not going to be in a consensus on that. And that's never going to happen. Therefore, we can't impose that in any sort of law that says you should think one way or another. Every person should have his own personal conviction as to whether or not a person imposing whatever his religious beliefs are, if he goes down that path of any sort of imposition at all, which he shouldn't, then from the role of the office of the president, then he shouldn't. There should have no bearing. So let me also clarify. Say again that these separatists, given this history, these separatists who came from Europe trying to flee theocracy were Christian. They were not Muslim. They were not, they weren't from India. They weren't Hindu. They weren't Buddhists. They were Christian. And most of Americans were Christian in the early days. There were variations on Christianity. Some of them still believed in the King of England, the Church of England. And some of them still, were Catholic, whatever, Roman Catholic. Some of them, though, were Protestant. And these were all variations they were all baggage variations that were built upon Christianity. And that is the historical context of that particular constitutional phrasing. That these were generally Christians. The phrasing was not wasn't thinking much about a Muslim trying to run for office. Now, I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I am not saying that the way that should be read, that constitutional phrasing should be read, is that any religion, a person affiliated with any religion goes so long as it's Christian. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that any president is acceptable as long as he's Christian. But what I am saying is that the explicit addition of the verbiage of religious qualification in the Constitution was historically motivated by the sufferings of separatists, people who deviated from their theocracies. And the key point to keep in mind here, given that, is that Islam demands theocracy. Islam demands it. If you're a Muslim and you genuinely believe in the Quran and you've read it, you've studied it, then you know what I'm talking about, because I bought a Quran so I can know this stuff, and I have studied it, and I don't know, I haven't read it end to end, but I have read enough, and I'm still learning. I'm not just reading the Quran, I'm also reading and listening to teachings about what they believe, not because I care. I'm not Muslim, but I want to understand what they believe, and what I'm seeing, not only in the teachings, but more so just in the patterns of what's going on over there in the Middle East and everywhere else, that Islam is the standard religion, whatever, is you have a standard of theocracy. And you don't even have that with Israel, with Judaism. You don't even have much of a theocracy of of Jewish religion in Israel, believe it or not. It's surprisingly so. You have a democracy there, which is different. You don't have democracy, a true democracy, in the Middle Eastern states, the Middle Eastern countries. So Islam demands theocracy. If we become a Muslim nation, if our nation becomes filled with Muslims, we will turn into a theocracy, one that demands Sharia law. Now, regarding Ben Carson and his tax plan, I believe that what his plan is as far as taking down the the progressive tax for the rich folks and imposing taxes on poor people. I believe it also. First of all, let me say, regarding this plan causing America's debt to skyrocket. This notion that if he changes our debt policies, we're not going to be able to afford to balance our budget at all. First of all, that his tax plan also includes major removals, destruction of entire branches, or not branches, but offices, departments, that are, especially those that fall under the control of the executive branch. As the head of the executive branch, he can do that. Now, of course, he may significantly involve Congress, but in fact, he may have to involve Congress on most, if not all, of these department removals. But I think he would get backed, and I think that would happen. I mean, if Obama can impose Obamacare, I'm sure he could come a long way on eliminating some of these excessive, unnecessary departments and offices. So those offices and departments take up a huge chunk of our budget. And so him eliminating those, I think, would carry a huge difference. But he was also talking about finding all of the, or significant number of the tax loopholes that Congress has left in the tax code. And so those loopholes, he wants to get them closed. So between those two changes, I think he could go a long way. He really was talking about simplifying the tax code as well, so making it just a very simple, easy to read law. Everybody just pays X% and you're done. Rather than, and that in itself would eliminate a lot of those loopholes. Just no more, just basically a rewrite of a 10-page or whatever, 15-page tax, whatever number of pages tax law that gives equal treatment to everybody. So this notion of how is that Christian? How Christian is that? It's Christian-like. The notion of giving everyone the same tax, the poor people, rich people, it's Christian-like in that it puts everyone on equal levels. Everyone should be treated equally. That's Christian-like. Currently, the rich are imposed a tax that is a greater percentage on their incomes than the middle class. And meanwhile, the poor should pay their fair share too, even while we continue to provide them benefits. The poor people are the people who get our benefits. They're the ones who should be taxed. Frankly, you could argue that they should get taxed more because they get all these extra benefits. Now, I'm not denying that some large corporations get a lot of very, very large handouts, and that should stop too. And I think the president can go a long way on that as well. But that's beside the point. Regarding the core budget, it's Christian-like that everyone should be treated fairly, and the poor people should be treated equally. They should be given accountability. Just because they're poor, we don't want to be their enabler. Being beneficiaries of benefits, and they're not paying taxes. It's like giving money to a drug addict and then walking away. You don't do that. We don't do that. Why would you do that? And if you see someone on the street and they're poor, I hesitate to give them money. I do give to them though, but the way that I give to them is I go inside the restaurant that they're in front of. I buy them some food. I come back out and hand them food. I've done this a few times. Not a lot, but I've done it a few times. I don't hand them money because I worry that they're just going to go get drunk or go do drugs. And that's stupid. I don't want to be their enabler. What I do want to be is someone who demonstrates that I care about them. I'll give them a little bit of my time, and ultimately give them some of my money, as long as it's money that can't be spent on other things. So yes, that's Christian-like. The rich people should be held accountable. They should have their tax breaks removed. The poor people should be held accountable. They should be not enabled to continue being poor on the basis of their choices. Not everyone is poor because they're just in a stuck state. This is America. This is the United States of America. Anybody can get out of anybody who has a will. For anybody who has a will, there's a way for them to grow out of poverty and make something of themselves. Unless they're really, really struggling with some sort of disability, those are people who deserve extra benefits. But aside from those, or frankly, loving family. But aside from those scenarios, just not very many. There's not many of those poor people should be. I don't care. I mean, I don't care about them more. They're choosing to live like that. I mean, this is America. You make what you want of your life. If you want to get busy, get your hands dirty, get to it. Stop drinking and get better life choices. Ben Carson started out in a poor family. He chose to read until he climbed up the ladder in being a brain surgeon. And case in point. I mean, this guy understandably has no real concern about poor people either, beyond the fact that we shouldn't be enabling them. I believe in social justice to an extent, but if people are poor because their poorness is imposed on them, to an extent, I feel for them. But nobody owes in the United States of America. Nobody owes anybody anything, and we still hand out help for those who ask for help, and nobody should be given unfair treatment just because they feel that they're victims of bad luck. In general, when I say nobody, I mean there shouldn't be a group of a broad group of people just because they're making too little money that we give them unfair treatment that gives them special attention beyond a helping hand for those who genuinely want to get on their feet and grow and stop being poor by way of working like the rest of us. So that's all, guys. I've said enough.